Okay, so I recently made this video, Harare in the Bible, the Mystery of Zimbabwe, and then I want to take this video to just explain a little bit about what exactly it was all about and where I was coming from, because I feel like it was a little bit shocking to a lot of people who didn't have context in the 2-minute video. So I'm just going to expand a little bit as quickly as I can about the whole context and where this is referenced from and how it comes about. And here goes. So the first thing is that okay, let's do this. All right. So the way that people used to speak before, it was called Chikaranga. This is ancient Shona speech before Shona was spoken in Zimbabwe and or Harare, right? So I'm bringing this up because Chi, this comes from China, which is Chi, or this went to China. Either way, this means energy. And whenever we do something, you could say Chivanu, you could say Chi Karanga. It's the energy of something. And then this Ka, it is the soul, or it is, let's say, the essence of, or it's a particle. Ka. This is also something like a piece of something. So this is the essence of something, a part of the soul. And then Ra, this comes from Egypt, which is Ka also comes from Egypt, which is Egypt Ka, which is the Ka in the Ta. The whole name of Egypt is the Ka of Ta because of this Ka. And then the Ra, this is the sun or the light. And then the Nga, this is the manifestation or the projection. This is so powerful because it's manifestation. This is where they started building. This is also prophecy. This is also innovation. This is what it means, the Nga. But it also means width, which is wit, which also is width, but it is width. So this is also like na. So this is width. And this is how people used to speak, and this is how they used to communicate. So I'm showing this because it's just something to do with how the ancients used to speak. So I want to go through this as quickly as possible, okay? And then the Zimbabwean history, just the 101. So the modern Zimbabweans say they came to Zimbabwe from a place called Guruzwa or Pant. This is the land of Ubuntu. This land is in the Great Lakes. So this is where they say they came from. They were in another place before they were in Guruzwa. That place is the Middle East. From the Middle East, they went to Egypt. And some of them went to Yemen. Or at different times, they were moving in different places. But in Egypt, they stayed there. So this is how they got Chikaranga. And from there, they went to Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, this is where they were also building certain things, or temples, basically. So the temples in the Middle East are from there. So this is where these words come from, because this is where these people come from. And this is just the basic understanding. I don't think you can actually Google this, but this is oratory. This is the oral tradition. And it also ties in a little bit with what they call the Bantu migration. But it's not quite the same. But this is how it was. So from Ethiopia to Tanzania to Mozambique, and they were speaking, and they were doing certain things that were aligned with God and Ubuntu from the land of Put. They established the gold states that later on morphed into Zimbabwe, but they came all the way from the Middle East. Okay. So African history. So I was speaking about your Zimbabwean history. However, in Africa, it is the land of Ham, the land of Chem, which is Egypt, because essentially people move out of Egypt. Ham is Hermes, which is Hamitic, which is The culture of Kem, this was by the Karanga traced through the cattle that was in Egypt and moved down from a long time ago, from BC 8500. So Put, the source of the Nile, is Guru Uswa, which is also known as Tamera, Ukara, or Ukaranga, or Afura, which is the root of Africa, which is Africa. This word is tricky because this root is rooted in so many different spaces. And then Pat is the cradle of mankind, which is Guru Uswa, which is the source of the Nile. And Ham is the sage who established Egypt, Ethiopia, Put through his Hermetic skills. So this is the understanding of Ham and Hermeticism. And this is also understanding the curse of Canaan, which was using this knowledge in the wrong way. Okay, and then the ancient traditions. So here, Hara is a Semitic word. It is apparent and fascinating that Zimbabwe or Hararians have roots in the Middle East where the word literally originates. So I'm going to explain or show the root in its actual essence. So the selection of the name may not have been conscious, but the word identifies an ancient people with a history that stretches beyond and before Zimbabwe. So this is to be emphasized because I think this is where some of the confusion will be, which is the timeline. So the word was not like consciously like people like, hey, let's choose a word and let's make it Harare because of Semitic roots. No, it's not even like that. But it's just because the Semitic roots are rooted in everything that we do. So it's something like it couldn't have been called gloop glop because we don't have those words, but it was this word because we have those words because of the roots of the people. Okay, so this is Harar in Ethiopia, and this is Harar in Ethiopia and Harar in Zimbabwe. And all of these countries have certain things, or both of these countries are interesting in their own ways. Okay, so now the Limba people of Zimbabwe are a fact. So according to their tradition, these are Zimbabweans. The male ancestors were Jews who left Judea about 2,500 years ago and settled in a place called Sena, which is Yemen. So the tribe split into two groups. One group stayed in Ethiopia, which is where we get Harar, and the other group traveled further south. The Limba claim that they built temples in Tanzania and Kenya. So just like the Karanga, they were building temples everywhere. Others supposedly settled in Malawi, where their descendants reside today. Some settled in Mozambique, eventually migrating to Zimbabwe and South Africa. They claim that their ancestors constructed Great Zimbabwe because they were a branch of the Karanga. So this is why I started with this essence of the Karanga. Because this is not like a group as it is today, but it's actually an umbrella term for different groups, apparently 12 different groups. So these 12 different groups include the Limba as a part of that group. Although the Limba in their own group, they have 12 different groups as well, which is so fascinating, which is just the mathematics that's used. And this is a whole other understanding of what they knew, the ancients. So the Limba people are a Jewish tribe that came from the north. So all of these words will come into our vocabulary because of these roots. So not necessarily to say that it was a conscious effort to do it this way, but then it's just an interesting connection because this is a real living connection, and it's actually unfolding and showing itself in the basis of the Limba people. So Africans are historic people with a sophisticated form of language. Old African was Paleo-Hebrew. So Mesopotamia has many Bantu roots. So these are just a few that I just included here. So something like Enlil, the god of sound, wind, and creation, is Lila, which is Turira, which is the sound. So the Lil is the god of creation and storms and winds and thunder and lightning and things like that. So this is the sound, and this was the creator god who used sound. So, and then there was Inanna, which is the goddess of love, which is Kudadana in Shona, which is just the same word. This is from Mesopotamia. So these are just a few words. So why would these words be the same? Which is love, Kudanana Inanna, which is where we get the word Diana and things like that. And then we have Mesopotamia, which is Mashokotama, which means the word of Exodus, but which also means the monkey totem. This is where it comes from as well, which represents knowledge. So today, Mesopotamia is Iraq. In the broadest sense, the historic region included Kuwait, parts of Iran, Syria, and Turkey. Abraham, the father of all major faiths, was in Mesopotamia until he got the words of Exodus, which is Mashokotama, which is Mesopotamia, Mashokotama. So they moved from there because that's the word and that's the name. And then finally, so here we have the word Hara, which has these connections to Harare. And then here we have another word, which is Zaire, which is Congo. So Joram went to Zaire and all the chariots with him, and he rose by night and smote over the Edomites. So this word is also being used for this country another time. Why? Because these people as well have roots somewhere else. So Zaire is a word that was used for Congo. Semitic words are common in African societies and cultures. Zaire only occurs once in the Bible. So I just took a few minutes here just to explain a little bit of the context of what I was saying in terms of Harare and Hararite, and understanding that these occurred at different times, but within the timeline, these were the same people who were here and there. So they were always there, but they were not always here. This is the thing about it, and that's why they use these words with these constructions from Mesopotamia and the Middle East all the way to the south of Africa.